Dwight White, originally from Houston, Texas, but have been local to Chicago for over 10 years now. I am a multidisciplinary artist, so do things ranging from painting murals, painting on canvas, showcasing in gallery exhibitions, and then also just collaboration with brands. I think is just another exciting space to tap into. For me, my football career suddenly came to an end. It wasn't expected. It was in my junior season. I had a career-ending injury. Actually ruptured my kidney, so I had to make the decision to stop playing. And so art was a tool I kind of used as my outlet, just something that felt natural, made me feel good. And so that's what ultimately made the decision. It was kind of just the feeling it gave me consistently, being able to create, and then eventually start getting the same feeling I did when I played sports. It was just, felt like I was kind of serving myself a little bit more than a team, but ultimately at the same time I was able to serve a community. So that's what I loved about art and helped me make the transition. I'm actually recovering from a torn Achilles still. So I've injured, I know all about injury these days. Yeah. I tore my Achilles in October. I got the surgery at the end of October, and now I'm just about 3 weeks out of the boot. So it's like a year-long type of recovery, so it's been interesting. It made me think about art differently too. I know this mural season will be interesting. I'm hoping to be recovered by then. That's a goal of mine, but we'll see. Yeah. I think the background as a student athlete, right? It was significant in how I approach my art today. Also my background in marketing, I worked corporate for a few years. So I think all those things together have helped play a role in how I approach art and business. And I think it's always exciting. I move with the level of tenacity, kind of like I did when I was playing sports, try and manage my time as good as possible. But yeah, there's a ton of things that I feel like are lessons learned through athletics and through corporate America even maybe that definitely benefit me as a full-time artist. I think I've always wanted to inspire people with my art literally, but also my story, because it's not super traditional and it gives people hope to be able to kind of just go after and achieve anything you want. So I would say just kind of having an untraditional path to art and not having studied it, being self-taught, transitioning from athletics to art, full-time artistry. I just want to say things are possible, and I think you can make something your career full-time or pursue something that inspires you full-time solely based on the fact that you never counted it out as a possibility. So I think that's one, and then the second part is continuing to build community. I think we're in an interesting world today where so much is digital, but even in that space, how do I figure out how to continue to build, connect, grow as my platform continues to grow? How do I also bring my community along with me and we all stay inspired together? So that's how I would say that's my two parts to that answer. Yeah, so when it comes to community goals, I would say a lot of times it's rooted in community artwork. So mural making is something that I think is always a challenge because of the scale, because of the time commitment, the supplies that need to be used, and this learning curve, right? But that's the thing where no matter what, it's gonna reach the streets, reach the people. So that's one tool I always use. And then the other part of that is just collaboration and doing larger scale events where it's more than just me painting. I bring in installation artists and musicians, where it's really immersive and more of an experience, and I think that helps build community as well, even beyond the digital space,
We have the bag.
Woo! That's hot.
Got some of the cans.
Man.
Some artwork on there as well.
Well, the gold finish.
Yup.
Exactly like we were talking about now. That's incredible.
T-shirt.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Man, this is so cool. Man, overall, I think, it says it on the bag, it's a dream. I remember we, like we said, we connected a few years ago, talked about kind of making this happen at some point, patience, and then we bring it to life, and I think it's beautiful. So I'm super excited about this. Can't wait to get this in other people's hands. I love how it just has a bunch of personal touches. It feels spontaneous and raw, but very finished, I think what's been interesting about me personally and my style, it's evolved a lot over time. It changes pretty rapidly as well as I continue to come into myself as a full-time artist, right? And so When I think about early influences, for sure, Basquiat was one of them. And I think, adding elements of surprise that he incorporated into his work is kind of just a nod of respect to what he brought to the artist community, specifically the Black artist community. I think the other things that you'll see in this work, kind of replicating some of my pieces from the past and combining them. I will add floral elements quite a bit, try and portray people in a positive light. So just kind of like looking up, being inspired, knowing that you can go higher is kind of what this piece was all about, and dreaming big. So I think at one point in the design, I just had the message like, into the sky. And like, that's just really all about just reaching higher and being an explorer. So that's kind of what the design was all about. I'll keep it 100% honest. My go-to consistently is always something along the lines of an Americano. It's just usually straight to the point. I love kind of just the overall taste of the coffee beans as well. So I think, yeah, it's usually simple flavors, but I always like, trying new things, seeing how we can get more robust. I'm not the coffee expert. So I'm excited to see what the coffee experts collaborated with me on so I can dig into something new. The aroma already got me. It's like more robust, right, than like my traditional like Americano. You have like, it's much more flavorful, but it still has like that bitter, but also a little bit savory almost, because there's just like you said, like some fruity notes, I think. So I think overall, it's perfect balance, I would say. I think well balanced is how I would describe this coffee for sure. My number one priority this year is just continuing to build a collection. As I mentioned earlier, like I've had a style that continues to evolve, right? I'm trying to put more bodies of work together that are cohesive and that are more focused on storytelling. So that's gonna be like my number one priority this year. Secondly, continue to figure out what partnerships and collaborations make sense. I think it's like a sweet spot for me in terms of being able to, obtain some of those, but now it's like, all right, is this a good fit? Does it make sense? And how does it continue to build upon what I've already had and continue the momentum? So one I'm working on right now is, in collaboration with an organization called Round 21 in the NFLPA. And it's really, me tapping into, some of the most legendary athletes' greatest moments and putting it on, sports memorabilia and limited edition footballs, basketballs, and things like that. So that's a cool one. Like I said, the intersection of art and sport, I think always excites me. It's kind of just a good balance of who I am. It's cool when you have collaborations that are like part of your life, right? Like, you wake up in the morning, at least I do, and I have a coffee. Or I remember, it's kind of like a funny story from just like as I was like working my way into becoming a full-time artist, like I used to have a ton of late nights, right? Like most people wouldn't necessarily recommend you have a coffee at midnight or whatever. But to me, it was a thing. I used to take these things called coffee naps. I might have actually wrote it on this bag. It's on here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's actually here in the in the crevice right here. It says coffee nap because like that was like a huge part of like my story. It's like what I did regularly. I would literally get home from my corporate job and be exhausted. I would make myself a coffee, drink it, knock out. I'll wake up just like inspired, ready to go. I used to just call them coffee naps, and it was kind of a funny joke me and my roommate at the time had, just around like how we enjoyed the taste of coffee, but also just kind of the functionality of what it could bring to the rest of our evening and inspire us to just achieve dope things in the nighttime. It'd be 3 a.m. still going crazy. That's also on the bag, 3 a.m. So yeah, they're all like just like little hidden elements that like when I got put onto this project, I just thought about like what's the significance of like coffee and creativity to me, and like that's what it was all about. It was just like I've used coffee in my everyday life. Now what's its function? And that's kind of how the bag came to life. It wouldn't make sense to most, but like,
I couldn't do it. Shit,
no, literally, I'd be like going downhill and I'm just like, man, I just need something like warm and something that's also just gonna like, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna get back to it. And I would get up a couple hours later, like it could be like hour and a half, 2 hours. I just went down after drinking a smooth coffee, and then I'm up, I'm back at it and just creating through the night.